Guys, I try to move on. I'm getting text messages. My friend and neighbor, Rick Bell, just by example, but I've heard from two other people and my own producer, Ryan. And what is Conor doing? This is the question. I just keep getting hit with this, and I'm saying, hey, hold on. You're marrying the idea of a press conference and a fight. And there's a couple of reasons that you should not do that. For example, we found out about the press conference 1 week ago. Do you agree? Did that happen? 1 week ago, we found out there's going to be a press conference in Ireland. True? All right, true. We found out about the fight 8 weeks ago. I guess right now it'd be 5 weeks ago. 8 by the time it goes off. And the reason I share that with you is the huge gate, the revenue, International Fight Weekend, the marketing, the planning, everything that we've had was done up until 5 days ago without a press conference in Ireland. Now, we still don't have the press conference in Ireland, but we do still have the fight. Like, we are right where we started 1 week ago. There's nothing that has changed. I get where one would make you start thinking, right, there's a little smoke and then there's going to be fire. I'm sharing with you, it would be wildly difficult in Conor's situation. Now, as much as Conor is the show must go on, as much he's coming off one of the worst injuries in the history of the UFC. One of the worst injuries in the history of our sport. So if he needed anything or he needed more time, like, we would all really understand that, wouldn't we? But that's not the road they went down. As a matter of fact, the one and only time Conor addressed the fight, he says in the press release that he consulted the UFC. That's his first line. His last line is, I cannot wait to get in there and put on an all-time great performance. Like, there's a number of things about how this was written where you know it's not Conor, but the hyphen between all and time, Conor wouldn't even know where to find a hyphen button. I mean, just for example, they did a really bad job, but they're not under oath. They're not under subpoena to give us accurate information. But if I am going to look at that information, those don't go together and the fight getting canceled. We consulted with the UFC. We're going to put on an all-time great performance. Okay? Those two lines do not go together with the fight is going to be canceled. Look, there's not a lot of rules and laws in ticketing, but one thing that Dana White would never do is attempt to sell a seat to a fight that he can't put on. And I do mean never. If he had any reason to believe that fight wasn't going to go on, that would be stopped in its tracks. So I'm only sharing for you. Like, if you're taking the guess that Conor versus Chandler isn't going to happen, you're doing nothing more than guessing. And if it turns out and it comes to fruition, you go, I told you so. I say, a little bit, but please, what was your evidence? What was the reason you came to those beliefs? I have reasons that I'm coming to the beliefs that I am, which is that fight is on. And another big part of it is nobody else has been offered that fight. The fight, by the way, the fight to make is Max versus Chandler for the 155-pound belt. And Chandler having to go back to 155 in 4 weeks when he was told he gets to go to 170 and he was lifting, he was training, he was living that life. Like, that would be a very annoying phone call to get. But if anybody has the mental toughness and discipline to do it, make no mistake, it's Michael Chandler. Oh, by the way, you're going to put a title up? I will speak for Chandler. He will be there, and he will be at 155 pounds. But those calls haven't.
You want them to fight for the 155-pound belt?
Yes. Yeah, for the BMF belt.
Oh, the BMF, okay.
But make no mistake, those calls haven't happened. I mean, none of that stuff is in place. None of that stuff is in the works. And there was a couple of interesting replacements potentially for Conor. Charles Oliveira comes to mind. But the idea wasn't that Conor would be gone. So Conor is not going to hang his hat on something silly or ridiculous. Now, he could pull out of a fight for a number of different reasons. And if there's ever a guy that's not going to offer you an apology, it's him. But the only thing that Conor has ever sold is power. The confidence is real. The skills are real. The heart and the bravery are real. And to pull out of a fight, even due to illness or injury, is something I don't think Conor would do. I don't think he would. Now, there's always an extent, right? But you would have told me that nobody is going to do a post-fight interview when their body is in shock from looking down at an injury that's so bad. You would have told me that. But then one did, and it was him. And to make believe that he's going to pull out of a fight, and don't forget, he is the one with the information. It's really key if you're making these guesses as to what's going to happen. The UFC would have checked, double-checked, and triple-checked. Is this fight on? Why? Whatever happened here that's out of your control that couldn't get you 20 minutes from your house, why should we believe that if that happens again, you don't have the ability to get through that logistically and get to a different continent? That's a very fair question. I mean, could you imagine? And they say this happens in offices all the time, by the way. I read a chapter in a book one time. You call a meeting in the office, whoever closest to the meeting room, whoever's office and their natural is closest to the meeting room will be last. It's like this weird phenomenon. So, I mean, it really is a little bit ironic that they're 20 minutes from Conor's house. The bar that he got sauced at last night, just for perspective, is 20 minutes from his house in a different direction. So there was nothing outside of his control there, but there was things outside of his control here. Like, if anyone isn't going to like that press release, if anyone's going to look at this, I mean, there's a lot of problems here, and this is bad, it's going to be Conor. Conor came into a press conference one time. He was opposite for the fight with Eddie Alvarez. And he came onto the stage. You guys remember this one? Remember when he came on like this? It was like the Joker. It was like this. Oh, God, did you see the Joker do that? It was badass. It was like really, it was just this small piece of theater. But Eddie was already gone. Conor busts on. He's so late. He walks up, takes his belt, has a seat. But Conor says, man, I got all sorts of expensive watches, but nobody tells me where to be. Nobody tells me what to do. I don't have a boss. You don't tell me be here at 3 and then I got to be there at 3. I'm the boss. But he did this whole thing, right? It was a whole routine. It's like anybody. You mark out over your gimmick when a period of time goes by. You are all, whether you're great showman or not, you are whoever you have been pretending to be. It's not any different with Conor. I'm only sharing that with you. Like this idea that I got no boss, like this was a gimmick that he's ran pretty hard. So then to find out that something was outside of their control, I'm just sharing like that's not going to be something that's going to sit well with him. He's not going to love that. But the ability to come in with injury or illness, right? This is a guy that I don't think would pull out with injury or illness. I don't think he would. I'd be disappointed to find out that he did. But that ability is still gone. The ability to speak up and cover for this is still gone. And if that fight doesn't happen for some reason, I mean, the press conference was postponed. But there is some massive reasons that you don't understand why that word was used. And that isn't a multicultural or a bilateral. There's reasons that word was used. And I'll let you know this. If I'm wrong, which is rare, particularly when it comes to Conor, I've understood him and explained it him better to you than anybody else has. But if I'm wrong, and for any reason, that walk doesn't happen on the 29th, it will not be postponed. We will not use this creative and fancy word. That fight will be canceled. They will move on with something else. Michael Chandler, I believe, will stay on the card. Might even get a promotion in that a belt is up at 155 pounds with Max. Let's see where that goes. But the idea of postponing, we're going to move on. Oh, my goodness. For heaven's sakes. You get Khabib and Tony to get signed again before you get the boss to sign off on McGregor versus Chandler again.